Geshe-la, shall I recite some prayers at the beginning like last time?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just share my screen with everybody. One moment. Sangye cherang saki chonam lai janchu badu dani kapsu chi dagi chenyang gi besanam gi drola penche sangye du parasho sangye cherang saki chonam lai janchu badu dani kapsu chi dagi chenyang gi besanam gi Drala penche sangye de parasho sangye churang soki chonam la janchu batu dadni kapsu chi dagi chernyang gi pesanam gi drala penche sangye de parasho gangi tuzen ne jung ne tawa tanche pangpe chi Dabe cheni tenzam pa gotam de la chatselo.
Geshe-la.
Yeah.
다시 들래? 테네. 드링 미 카셰 sarba lebdua. 드링 Saka Dawa yinsang. 드링 드링 sawa. 장중 lamdrun droya marwa. 드링 Saka Dawa kolla tuchim Dawa kolla chi. Kachuri dua rebe. Ore titaka res kani sena mi shamba de zo namgyu legio marwa.
다 드린 만족 가래 있으나 또 참바 인지 전주구선 동행게 따와 근데 모두 충충 지체 겸도 근데 모두 충충 지체 이가서 공제 탐시지 있으와
Last. Today we are going to talk about the aspects of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and also the view of emptiness as well as refuge. Geshe-la will give a little introduction on these points, and we will try to meditate on these points as well.
다 Saka Dawa ale tango 다 간데 저래 살아도 네 상기 좀 된데 되니 충분히 되지 Saka Dawa 치 차리어스 Saka Dawa에다 드린다 종아래 이네 처바 제라 충분히 되지 차리어스 야 상기 좀 종아데 Saka 좀 된데 아메기 풍수 쇼바 당보대체 되네 뭐머저 상게바 다 냥알인데바 어디게 다 되지 야는 중국고에 되지 체케도 다 중국고에 되지 다 이해 말봐 아 내가 되지 좀 쳐버려 다 어디를 숨두스가래 되지 내 키기가 그랬어
아니 디조초 숨데조 마잉에서 쇼바탕 딘데 디참마 제바 총알 갑라 충바르베
중앙 충바레스 용다딜라기야 스타인에 땐데데 다 이네 딜라기야 그랬어 제가 개라든 좀 되게 충바레스
네. So today is the so-called Saka Dawa day, also Vesak it's called, and this is today is a full moon in Tibetan calendar. That's the 15th lunar day of the month, so the 15th day of the month, which is always the full moon in Tibetan calendar. And so within this time frame of this month, there are several big events said to have taken place in the life of the Buddha. So first, it is said that Buddha was born, actually not on the 15th, that often it is stated, but it is said that it was on the 8th day of the lunar month, so the 8th Tibetan day. And on the 15th, it is said that he entered the womb of his mother, that on the 15th of this month, so on the full moon of the Saka Dawa month, he achieved enlightenment. Then it is also said that he entered nirvana on this day, and that he turned the wheel of Dharma for the first time on this day in this month, not in the same month, of course, like over the years. But of course, it's very hard to know whether that was exactly always on that day, but that's how now it's assumed. And all activities of the Buddha, all Dharma teachings of the Buddha were taught for two reasons: for the accomplishment of one's own sake, and for one's own benefit, and for the accomplishment of the benefit of others, which are also, these 2 points are called the twofold benefit. So in order to perfect and achieve the twofold benefit, the benefit for others as well as the benefit for oneself, the Buddha taught various Dharma teachings. So that was, whatever he did, all his activities and teachings had this goal in mind.
And Jungari Java, Tambo de Jungari Bal, Tambo Che Young Guyare. The nature of the Yamsalam be Kindu Young Guyare. You can do the Mombas of the Sanga Devas Young Guyare. Jungari Bal Java, Tambo Chubunjo Sejumar, that shed in Muela Jung, Tene, Kindu de Jung, Tene, Dene. Kindu de Chanyami, Rashani get to Tashim Jet, Sangi Koma Tops Jet. That's those dog we are.
In terms of occurrence, the procedure must be the following. So first of all, there must be the Dharma. The Dharma has to be present, the Dharma has to be taught, and then there needs to be a community of practitioners who follow the Dharma path, which then is what is called the Sangha. And this Sangha practices the Dharma path and then at some point achieves the twofold benefit, the benefit for others and the benefit for oneself. And then they subsequently achieve full awakening. So this is the order of things.
Chanjuk Center, Semda Yada Dawa, Shivaju, Dan Kasula, Yamin says. Today, Yamin said the Riba and the Niba, Ya Yamnon said Tomboli lay into Chanjus in the public in the US China. Just not sure that Tambo Young Budwa. The such you will rebut in Yapsulaja, then Tarmobas of San gave us in Sanjunde, then San gave us a chumurva. The Yona, Tagina, and what should the world you would.
But in the first place, what needs to occur, what needs to be there is the Dharma path, the Dharma practice. So, for example, the Buddha himself, before he achieved enlightenment, before he got fully awakened, he himself practiced bodhicitta, he practiced the authentic, the pure view, and based on that practice he gained experience and insight in these practices and traversed the 10 bhumis, the 10 bodhisattva levels, until finally he achieved full awakening. And through the path of practice, therefore, the Buddha himself became part of the noble Sangha. He became a noble one, traversing the 10 bhumis and so on, and then he achieved enlightenment. So we see that everything starts with the Dharma.
Dene sangi jumde dege ma che de ten chöde niba chunso.
Re.
Dene chöde nyamsalambe kindun chene, kindun de sumba de jungdoa. Kya bunjo sumsina wo de nesta, sangi jonde de tamba di wanta chena dres chumaras, right?
Temba digi wangtu chena.
Temba di wanta chawayina, right?
Ani shemba di kare wangtu chena chanson. Ne chu tabu.
Kidangi chawayina.
Jidangi show. So in terms, so that was the general way of the process, how the process initiates. But then regarding the present Buddha, the way how things how we look at things is that the Buddha first achieved enlightenment, and then based on his enlightenment, the Dharma arose. The Dharma path was presented. And therefore then the Dharma becomes the second point here, not the first. And then based on the Dharma path, there was the Dharma practice, therefore there were practitioners, and those practitioners would become the Sangha. And then that's when then finally we talk about the three jewels.
Dona Sangye Jonde de Sade Randun Tang Shendun ke Sambani Randu Dundu Nyumumbe Tibatan Shije Tiba Moliba Pan Pon Chilegi Deni Toning Tawala Lochang Shendi Dundu Chabada Niji Chanjuk Sim Dendegi Nyamne Tashimba Chene Deni Shendun Gu Randun Gu Dar Shendun Gu Se Sangi Jonde de Rashenige Den Kaso Tashimba Drup Tuyagi Yende Moliba Yonsu Zobare Chadang Kyo Maliba Se, Yende Maliba Yonsu Zoba Yendezang, Sanke Shenelawiares.
So in short, what is a Buddha? An awakened one or enlightened one? That's somebody who has perfected the twofold benefit, the benefit for oneself and the benefit for others. So for one's own sake, the Buddha purified all afflictions, the veils of afflictions and the veils of cognition, and trained in the view of emptiness. And through that, he achieved the so-called enlightenment bodies for the sake of one's own benefit. And then for the sake of the benefit of others, he perfected the practices of bodhicitta, of loving kindness and compassion. And through that perfection, through mastering these qualities, fully embodying them, integrating them, he achieved the enlightened bodies for the sake of others. So in short, the Buddha, the enlightened one, is somebody who has removed all stains from the mind and who has achieved all qualities, who has perfected all qualities, all positive qualities.
Yeah, Dindiji Sangi Jonde de Sejangarazo Lola Chicha. Similar. Sangi Jonde de Sede, the Nichon Sarawa, Sejiro, the Nija Sosolola Chabu. And the next Sangi, oh, that the money can say, Yenden Kunda Denge, Randon and Shendun, to be that Yenden Chazon Star, Jung Denge, Parshin Denge. Comment the Deji Yedenge, Sangi Jonde de Setela? Oh, de la Rawashana. One lambda, Chimano, what turn to Yagi, you the Boston and Miguel Shimba, Chita Seva Shimchason. The name by it, that Hongi, my lambda Badilla, nor but the triple young sigmares, no 2 young sigmares. Karaisna, Kong Tarang, Lana, Narazo Machine, the doors are Yape Varishas. Consulted Corandus Pebe Lamdela, Nanzola Tara, Jodan di, Samutanda di, Kanyin disse Gugure, Yunden di Langugures, Yunden the digital love Gugures, and Ama Lavia di, Sani Jonda de Chula. Nanzokani the say Chuto, Koranga de la Lam, the Korasa Gamarova, Jodan Arazola Tara, Lam, Casamata, Chetemba Savare, Chenach. 책 니바도 좋다.
So whenever we hear the word Buddha, or whenever we think about the Buddha or read about the Buddha, that's what should pop up in our minds immediately. The true qualities of a Buddha, the true definition of a Buddha, as being someone who freed himself from all stains, from all faults, and who achieved all qualities, someone who mastered the benefit for himself and for others, someone who has all of these aspects. That is the Buddha, that's the enlightened one. And therefore then we can be really sure, and it becomes obvious, that the Buddha is the greatest teacher that we could ever have, and that the path that he taught is authentic, because whatever the Buddha taught arose through his own experience, and based on this same path that now he passes on to us, he achieved Buddhahood, he achieved enlightenment. So therefore it is impossible that he taught a wrong path, because he himself went through all of these stages that he left behind for us to practice and achieved enlightenment. So therefore the Dharma is that which shows us what qualities we need to develop and how to develop them, and what faults to remove and how to remove them. So in the same way, how the Buddha himself practiced. So we see in this order, first comes the Buddha and then comes the Dharma.
Rande tarsibaji due잖아. 현재 tarsibaji du에게 된도 송배 정대되게 최대 나라저게양 두바이나 나라저 꽤 말려봐 용서 세치다. 나라저 란데나 현재 용서 서버 두투에게 되는 랑가도 따다 예 말해. 제서 상계의 최대 점무에도 차대게 하래.
상계 기초. So the Buddha taught the Dharma so that we as well can master the twofold benefit for others and for ourselves. And therefore, because all of this was tested by himself, we can be sure that this path is going to lead towards that result, the result of being free from all veils and stains, negativities, and endowed with all qualities. And for this reason, the Dharma, or the teaching of the Buddha, becomes the actual refuge.
간사 캐버신 기부담바 마보저여 마테 긴두군조서 차게요래 나란서고 냠니 다가랑 제바이는 레인 긴두군조 다가 차예요.
And we have seen that those individuals who entered the path of practice as taught by the Buddha, and who achieved a certain state of realization, then entered the noble community, become part of the noble Sangha. And this is the same for us. At one point, that based on our practice, we will reach a certain state where we as well become part of the noble Sangha.
강에 여세 ለ 타래게 된다라 되네 겹치게 있어 저와시게 있어 르게사 데이스 근데 인데 나라도 랑기 강에 상기 최긴도 송라 겹다라와 쳐와 있는 콘주게 람디가 따인데 Sanjay Kande Johnson, Chus the Kande Redo, Kimdus the Kande Redo, those Taja Chain, the Nala, Naran to get to again, never Chasan. Naran to run to Shawans of Mata, Taya with Semji, Yoto Jesse Lamdela Shova, get to a never Chasan. 제단다 나라서 뭐네 심쇼 가르쳐 보여라서 랑신 탐제 대원도 버리스 랑신 탐제 동해 민도 버리스 제단 만족이 동해 교다 잡아 탐제래 탈구고요 죄구고요 죄의 된도 되니 상계 김들라 만족이 좋아도 못하게 봐도 접수 시긴상 세워쳐서 어디 그랬어? 당한서 컴퓨터를 컴퓨터를 와?
And therefore, it is up to us to really go for refuge into these three jewels in order to get free from all our struggles, our difficulties, suffering, and so on. So we are really entrusting ourselves to the three jewels. We are placing our hope in them to protect us. We are exhorting them to protect us when we practice refuge. And if we take refuge to the three jewels for the sake of freedom from our difficulties and the suffering from all beings and so on, then we can be sure actually that they have the power to really be a refuge to us. And how can we notice? We notice by looking at the qualities of the three jewels, by really thinking again, as we just heard, about what are their capacities, what are their powers, and then we will become sure that they actually really have the power to be a refuge to us, to protect us, and so on and so forth. And they do not have it only for us, but they have it for all sentient beings. So that is really the path to go. And this is what we should remember when we practice refuge, when we take refuge. And whether it's us or whether it's all other sentient beings out in the world, in any world, then everybody just wants to be happy. Everybody wants to feel well. Nobody wants to suffer. Everybody wants to be free from suffering. And because we all wish to be free from suffering, from any kind of suffering, we go for refuge to the three jewels because they have the power to free us from those suffering, from any suffering. And we take refuge until this freedom has been achieved. And this is what we shall contemplate about now for a moment. So let's meditate about this. On this.
다들은 당당한서 점도들 공작이도 내 가르쳐냈으나 먼저 당신 수를 지금 봐있는 대원대 말에 동행민대 말에 세상 먼저 동행세대 수진 두개야 말에 민대 봐있는데 동행 교단 잡아라 먼저 타르고 야래 제가 동행 교단 잡아라 타르고 야래 된데라 타에게 탑도 수라 야랬으나 탑도 상기치 긴주송라 야르마도 신수직라 야마 캡처사다 레오저사 데마도 수직이야 말이야. 나라도 내 나자르 나와니나 맹강칭 스치네 가나강상지 캡토에 여르데 얘네 나라도 강에 용토라 캡토에 여 말이야. 쳔디 튕기 표순 초바 가즈지 좀바 얘네야 다도 만저게 강에 캡토에 쳐 여 말이야. 근데 매번 인데 남자기 리슨 게 강에 캡 통견도 소리에서 나보다 상계 치긴도 숨마도 매래. 남자를 저쳐서 데마도 매래다. 제가 남자 대처도 캡 치고 고야리스. 와.
We just meditated on refuge. Nobody, whether it's me or somebody else, wants to suffer. Everybody wants to be well, to be at ease and happy. So because nobody wants to suffer, we need to attain freedom from suffering. Who has the tools necessary to attain freedom from suffering? That's only available in the three jewels. Only the three jewels possess the tools and the skills to get free from suffering. So therefore, they are the only hope that we have. They are the only appropriate refuge because they are the only ones who can grant refuge. Of course, temporarily, if we are sick, we can go to the hospital or the doctor, and they might relieve us from our pain or disease in the moment. But they can never free us from all our struggles or all our difficulties. And therefore, not any form of wealth that you can accumulate in this life or property will ever have the capacity to free you really from the suffering of your body and the mind. They cannot, no property, sorry. No property in the universe can protect you from that, from the struggles, the difficulties, suffering of body and mind. Only the three jewels do have this capacity, and for this reason, it is so essential that we go for refuge. Genu kare chason çok.
Nurse tabaş.
Yeah.
Mune di neba de nela thaya de mengi tham buyaris. Men da chode leg to ne ro. Dena jene pezen de amjida me da ne yo sumla peze chaje. Neba di nela mune thaya de kane thar boyasna me da in chode kare ne sege chode 동의 최대 가리나 된들 때네 다도 정말 맹기를 쓰고 yarma 와 된들 때네 탈고 yarma다 신다 탑신 야마바스 제가 상기 준비된 하나로 맞된데 람데라 때네 난조 민주비 동네 대탄제라 탈고 부여했어. 제가 이제 뭐만도 소시하게도 쓰는 최고죠. 서치하게도 쓰러.
The three jewels or objects of refuge, they are often spoken about by the means of examples. So the Buddha is said to be like the physician, the doctor, who's necessary when we are sick to diagnose a disease and so on. So the Buddha is the teacher, the guide, right? So that's the first of the three refuge. And then there is the Sangha. The Sangha is said to be like a nurse, the friends on the path who take care, who accompany us and so on. And then there's the Dharma. The Dharma is the real refuge, the real actual refuge, because that's the medicine or the health and medicine. And there is no other way outside of these three jewels. So they are the real help that we need. And through the path that the Buddha taught, therefore we have to attain freedom from the suffering which we do not want. And therefore these three jewels are the real refuge. So in other words, this is why we go for refuge in the three jewels. That's the reason why.
가수로 제남이 저거라 서버 대다가 참여시도 겹수 치스기인데 야나 ele catchendo tanja arazo lumba di mitigere cave shoto 겹수 치스기인데 야나 동에 민두바 심지 여도죠 동에 민두바래 제가 나랑 겹고 나신지 심지 탐제 동의 규단 잡아라더니 겹수 치우스 라기인데 겹러졌을라 라와치인데 걔는 라와 간듯이인데
We want to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. What is this suffering? What are the causes of the suffering? We say, please protect me, please give me refuge through the three jewels. Please be my refuge. And are we saying this for ourselves? Are we going for refuge for our own sake, to get free from our own suffering? Or are we taking refuge for our family, for our close ones as well, for friends? Are we taking refuge for all of them? Or are we actually thinking larger than that and encompassing also all the people in our country? Or is our intention to go for refuge even bigger than that? Do we include all beings who do not want to suffer and who want to be free from suffering, which are all beings? So how is it? Are we taking refuge for everybody who wants to be free from suffering, just like myself?
겹수 치워이나 겹수도 치워 레데 이내양 결한게 삼바데 간데 저랬으나 우수도 부셔죠 딱히 라치 부마도 상년면 되죠 딱히
랑치고
라친징 시하도 딱히 다는 중세 가치 단체 나랑게 남이 나랑게 되는 조고 세상단에 그냥 지금내주 춘중직 셔도 결혼 Sangechi Gidusuma kept Chigure. Munaja Motay doctor. Sangechi Gidusumge, ah, Midi, some sort of Muna Tulumaya dinner. Sangechi Gidusumge, Midi Samle Nada, the Jola, some Tulukuna, the same joy in the region. Oh, Narang Lumbachi was Salayana, Lumbachi Bachu, Narang Lumbe beats Lavayana. The Deja Santana, they medieval. They are ranching the Shaman the Chimbari. Susu the Chimbari. That the name is Nara the Narang Kortan Chaba, Tungele Kakuya Karishidas. Tungele Karoji Sabo Gunzek Ares. Gunzek Karish took those Salade. Kotungeres. Tim Dugimindus. Tunge Kebrachi Gures. Then also Dugimindus. Gunze the Deja Saltan by Sinja Tanche Chibichikanabas. Kerang Ranchibu Salta de Dam, Kerang Namidam, Kerang Lumbachibu Salta Mendoa. Naras and Zamlin Digana, Mil Shashana, Mid Tonjur Tunjus Giore, the Chazan Dagare. Naras and me tongue Tunjushi together, Sama Dagare, Menduba de Tungeros, Narada Chipichikan was. Tunge images, Tunze Sharako Mundoa. Jazan. Tadus Kalasanta Bayena, Caps Chus, the Caps Chidande, Simjin Tamje, to make Kudan Chabala, Teni, Tower Chadota, to make Kudan Chabala, Gabochis and the Caps Chivayana. Sangeta changes in the Turamone, Shivuchi Casora, Tabachiki, Nimusha Chasarava, from Tugunashi Legedua, Tugukomanashi Legedua. Check a ranching guitar, Santa, Chick, Camille, Cabin Shire, the Nachi. Chick Dua. Santa, you watch her, you the Nachi. Just on the day, Santa, then gets to draw your capsule, to the contagious Santa, and gets to go. Taye, the Sinjin, Dida Tange, Naramba, Chiku Chicken. To make good and Chabala, Tarku do, Janet Tayo should the capsule, Capsule is what? Caps choose the Ravachas of Belgians. Those got a sound tango, and the caps of dog with the shape.
Although we can take refuge for our own sake merely, and that would be taking refuge, still at the same time it would mean that we have a very close and narrow mind, that we are pretty egoistic actually, just thinking about ourselves. Then if we take refuge for our close ones as well, our friends and family, then the mind is a little bit wider, but still it would be for a very small cause. So that's actually a bit embarrassing if we would do that. And we could even say that would sadden the three jewels, because that's not what they wish. And that's not really in accord with their intent. If we include all the people from our country, then that's still very selfish, because that's very related to yourself and your own interest. So why in the first place do we take refuge? Because there is suffering and we do not want that suffering. In the same way, how I don't want to suffer, all sentient beings do not want to suffer. And whether you think about your own wish not to suffer, or the wish of the people in your country not to suffer, or if you think of the people on all of this planet, or if you all people on this planet, or all animals on this planet, then we are all the same. Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to be unwell and uncomfortable. And therefore, why do we take refuge? Because this is suffering. Because there is this suffering. And this suffering is universal. And the wish to be free from the suffering is universal. Therefore, we take refuge for all sentient beings, so that all sentient beings may free from suffering. That's why we take refuge. This is what will really please the three jewels, what will make them very happy, because this is exactly the intention they have. So we become very close in our minds and hearts to the three jewels and to their hearts and minds. So how should we take refuge? For the sake of all sentient beings, including myself, because we all want to be free from suffering. So we take refuge for the sake of getting freedom from suffering, for all sentient beings. And it's very important that we know this, that we know why we take refuge. Kare gewa masepa. When we take refuge in that manner, then something very powerful happens, because in that motivation, there is very strong love included. Because we are taking refuge in order to protect all sentient beings from suffering, not only for ourselves. And that means in that moment, we have also practiced and generated loving kindness and compassion, great loving kindness and great compassion. And when we take refuge with this kind of motivation, with this kind of mindset, then that is really an authentic Mahayana kind of refuge. With that mindset, with that intention, then everything that we carry out with body, speech, and mind becomes a cause for the attainment of awakening. Isn't that amazing? We have gained a lot of profit based on that motivation. We have a win-win situation. So that will also make sure that the virtue that thereby is accumulated will not exhaust itself until we reach Buddhahood. It will not get lost.
Namu Gorube, Namu Budaya, Namu Dhamma, Namu Sangaya says, Sigdi, Naki Gewandi, Gunu Dele Dene, Devusangi Gumatavi Jundukoyare. Dua Ritu Semja Tamjala Pengiora.
When we repeat a mantra, such as the 6-syllable mantra and so on, we need exactly this kind of motivation. And we need it also when we take refuge. When we take refuge, we need to imbue the refuge with this meaning. And with this motivation, every mantra that we repeat becomes a cause for Buddhahood. Every time we repeat the refuge formula with that intention, that also becomes a cause for Buddhahood. And it also benefits all sentient beings.
This one. That the day is a young son of the dish star, chat, Junze the star taje. Oh, that or Sosola Tawa in Sosola Monechige Nyamtava Chigi Kasura Tamanzoge Samle Tone Chene Dine Shije Yunera Kayame Narazoge Chigi Nyumumbe Nyamboteya Terra Kayame Dini Narazo Soso Gula Dine Leda Nyumungipe Kasurata Kazon Gavana Shinji
Katsung Lama?
Ternashi, Zoemebush. Terganashi, Terga. Odena Shinjita, Shibuji Gedeni. Oda Taib Simja Digaya, Randa Ranya, Chiba Chigan, the Daya Ledan Shamoto, Hachangi Shuchimboyo. Tendeji Yobayinda, Dige Nunzula San. Takabresa. Oda Sanji Gindimado Minduda, said that the Dale kept to me the Sanji Shona Gindimado Suchi Mindu, said Saltanera. That cannot be king, so that cannot be Gabro cheese, Gabro Zero, said you. Those got a Saltan we are. Ningu Rivedene, Tezon Geneva, one to get to soon send the Sambakene, not the Yanjar Chung said there's come again, that's right. The Dika is the Kemru de Garchagan Sona, Champa and Zea Gundulane, the Nikemru Chitogala, the Nichamba Comba, Ninja Comba, Kemru Java, the Tabachambi Kemru Java, Tamayam de Giare.
Therefore, we should include that contemplation when we do take refuge. We are really, sometimes the Tibetans like to say like, oh, poor us, like weary people, we have no qualities, we are full of faults, we have no means to, we have no antidotes for our afflictions, but we have tons of afflictions, we have so much karma and so many afflictions in our mind stream that they are like a treasure. I guess so rich, so many of them, but we have no tools to deal with them. And just how in the way how wrecked I am, all sentient beings are in the same position, and we have so strong afflictions, but we have no means to deal with them. Often we are not even aware of what's happening, and how incredible that the three jewels do have all of these tools, all of this knowledge, all of these qualities, that in fact the three jewels are the only ones with the power to be really a source for protection, a refuge. And therefore, please, we should then supplicate the three jewels really with that in mind. Like, please really be my refuge, be our refuge, grant us your protection. And that should really come from the depths of our bones. And therefore, because this is so important, let's meditate about this again for a moment. And as you have heard, meditating and taking refuge in this way means that we are including the practice of loving kindness, of love in our practice of refuge. And through that, our refuge becomes fully a Mahayana refuge.
다양한 드레스는 담그래. 다음 조지레 있어.
Marisha, Kimenchik Choktumo Drogo Tukso Asani Mutashidele.
알아요. 저도 다 드레스. 남쪽 가는 있으나 단다 접수 중간기 나라서 내 접수 중이 있으나 나세야디 동행기 나로에 나 센디 와 나서 동행기 상황도 예되네 내가 너무 상황도 예베 나 센디 단다 나라서 다시 분분디라 때문에 따라 상심하도 유 다시 분분들도 째네 나서지 니주지에메스 겹서 두간게 내 동네선데 나 니주 매바 나신시 내 루스님게 동네선데 따뜻한 세간도나 니에 치에메스 대하랑은 또 동바랑 하레스 동이레스 동바니게 남보여스 겹수 치우 세게 겹이 겹군조 숨보 대양 나랑 마시니스 대단 상계 샤게 투바스라 이나 상계 샤게 투베 다시 풍부들 때는 딱봐 장지마도 샤게 투바스지다 나라즈 로라 나라나 신시기 유진의 주생의 집매 대초장 대양 견주야 다라니 겹이 겹군조 숨보서데 민기 파샤 장지니 대다 점자 랑원의 주가 중세장매 당하나서 타입의 심정스라 타입의 심정 대다양 식법 지간이 대다양 랑원 소속의 다시라 때는 딱와 상지 마도 지기 랑원의 주의 심정 지에 랑원의 주의 동해 지에 모두 상당제 대화양은 때내 따가상지 동해냐 때내 따가상지 대다 강제와 대탕제 민간 따여상지 마다지기 랑신기 주되는 지는 쓰러 대탕제 동반이 난도 있어 대다 매를 베시는 매와 말해 당해도 여장 라신기 주가스데 매 쓰죠. 동반이게 나도 쓰지. 누스가 동인도 중세 공자쇼 왔으냐?
Oningang do you sana di ngang tela yuris,
동반 도나 라신기 주가 동반 장장です. 라신기 주가 동반에 마도 코란 매가 말해 야레스. 여자 랑시주가 랑신기 야마레스. 나라도 뭐 나와나 시지네. 전전에 그러네.
di tongbingang do you lana diginelo tombanires lanchiparoa.
데네스 라든지. 내로 동반에 동반이 라니 있어. 내주 타토나 동반이 있어.
Who goes for refuge? I go for refuge. That's the one who suffers, who experiences suffering. That's the one who is overcome with karma and afflictions. However, if we look for this I on the basis of the skandhas, which are what makes the experience of an I, of a self possible, then we will never find an I, a self, in the skandhas. And in the same way, I talk about my suffering, my pain. But if I look for my suffering and my pain in my body and in my mind, I won't find my suffering because it's empty. Its nature is emptiness. It's not inherently existent in any way. And the same goes also for the three jewels. Yeah, we talk about refuge, we talk about the three jewels, we talk about the Buddha. But even the Buddha, that's just a label based on the skandhas of the Buddha. But there is not even a particle of real existence in the Buddha. There's not even a particle of real existence that we could call Buddha. And the same goes for the Sangha. The Sangha also is just a label. It's a concept, a name based on something, depending on something, on some causes and conditions, so that one can talk about Sangha. A dependent label. And there is no bit, not even a particle of real existence in the Sangha. And the same goes for all limitless sentient beings. They too are just, we can just talk about them based on a label. This is just a concept, an imputation. There is no real inherent existence to sentient beings. And there is no real existence to the suffering of sentient beings. And also joy or well-being, that's a concept depending on certain causes and conditions. So also here it's a dependent label, a name for something. It's just a name. The nature of it is emptiness. So it is, all of this is empty of an inherent existence. That does not mean that none of this exists at all, because conventionally, on a relative level, a conventional level, these things do exist. They are experienced, but they do not have an inherent existence, an existence in and of themselves. Because the real nature of all of these things is emptiness. And let's meditate a bit on this as well.
Tene da nganzo da situação. Da se de chichena da sendi narazo soki pumbu choe pumbu doshi namshe ki pumbu tendo do salta bayina da se de tatsene narazo pumbu nalo tsene da se zawani ne mindos 제가 좀 니에 메타주레스 그러나서 부부가 나로 전에 얘기면은 다 부부 치료도 되게 예식이 말았어 근데 인도 부부 난도 다 전에 민도 부부 치료도 다 전에 민도 다다서 지금 좀 텐데스 제가 좀 니에 메바이나 상기 좀 되게 다 되지 않았어 상기 준대 되게 풍부하게 나로 제간로는 상기 준대 되게 다들 같이 있는 제간로는 예요 말았어. 풍부 친구도 전에 예요만 나도 전에 예였어. 법에 균등한 게 다 세대잖아. 법에 균등한 게 다들 법에 균등 풍부하게 때도 제간로는 나도 전에 미니 치료도 전에 미니. 그 미니 바인데서 대다 당시 풍부할 때는 딱 잠레스 라야 돼. 풍부할 때는 딱 잠시 마다치 라만에 민도다 세게 상당히 돼. 근데 다다 풍부니까 다 라만에 좀 중세견네 때는 딱와 좀 인바 되는 신시 최군조야 때는 딱와 좀. 한 타입의 심정에 때는 딱 그 대화될 때는 따서니 동행될 때는 따서니 고화될 때는 따서니 탈바될 때는 따서니 너는 여도 제발 어디다 지금 당선 나가지 마도 지금 마도 나한테 레네 샤데 그 나라서 제가 저는 니치면 되게 인스로 정말 대단지 때는 따선 지인스 두스가 상당 거잖아.
Yankel Gomgiari.
아데 테스 겁나 야구도 와. 그리 공인도 공자리 계신 것이 없지.
So this self, this I, we can search for it within each skandha, aggregate. We can look for it in the aggregate of form, that of feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness. But we won't find it in any of these skandhas. So this self, the I, is something that when we look for it, cannot be found. If it cannot be found inside the skandha, then how could it be found outside of the skandha? Therefore, the self does neither exist within the skandhas nor outside of them. If that is the case for the self, that it's something that when we search for it, it cannot be found, then it must be the same also for the Buddha. Why would it be different? Also, the Buddha, if we look for where is exactly the Buddha, then we will not find the Buddha neither in the skandhas of the Buddha nor outside of the skandhas of the Buddha. And the same is also for the noble Sangha. If the self of the noble Sangha cannot be found within the 5 skandhas of the noble Sangha, how could it be found outside of the skandhas of the noble Sangha? That's not possible. And since the self of this noble Sangha cannot be found. And since the self of all of these elements that were mentioned cannot be found, it is said for that reason that the I, or the self, is merely a label based on the aggregates, based on the skandhas, nothing more than a label. That's what it means. So whether it's the I, or whether it's the concept of a skandha, both of them are nothing but labels, depending on something else, so dependent labels, without an inherent existence. And the same goes for the three jewels. The same goes for all sentient beings. The same goes for the notion, the concept of suffering. The same goes for the concept of joy. The same goes for the concept of liberation. The same goes for the concept of samsara. In short, everything that appears, that so vividly appears, although it does appear, if we look for a true existence within those appearances, we won't find any. It's all just a mere label and imputation. And we should also take a moment to meditate on this one more time.
다들 내인데 참마다 ninja 군도 라네 나다 tempo namba 지체 동인이 다와 갈라 간다 싶고 얘네 다 뉴몬비께 시제 지배기께 저 탐제단 저 좋아 지금 상기기 고박 세지 어다 타입의 심진기 디기 주의가 전달라 나 어다 저 탐제 레드는 저 상기기 고박 세지 님 타원에 타버려 척이 타버려 쇼상데 뭐 타버려 차오상데 상밖에 간도 지도 자주 쓰는 상당하셨어
Therefore, practice taking authentic refuge as we have done, based on the motivation of loving kindness and compassion, and then meditate for a short while on the view of emptiness, and then generate bodhicitta by creating the aim, the intention here to attain awakening for the sake of all sentient beings, for the well-being of all sentient beings, so that they may obtain the level of Buddhahood, which is the state in which freedom from all veils and stains has been achieved. From all veils, meaning the two veils of afflictions and of knowledge, the cognitive veils. And therefore, Bodhicitta then says, I will attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May it be so. I will make sure I commit to achieving Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In this way, we should generate bodhicitta, the mind of awakening. And now again, let's take a moment to meditate and contemplate on that as in the best way we can.
야, 그거 다 장조 글쎄. 딱 남진 알아서 대대보다 상당히 되레스. 수수께끼를 참바다 민지. 되니 인데기 군들라네 님 대화신 그 경그야 다바지가 탑시체. 되니 토마르 개비 모션 맞춰야 돼 개심보. 토마르 개비 모션 맞춰. 딱 개비 되지 모션 봤으면 상계 군주스의 컨디션스기래. 저 군주스의 컨디션스기래. 개비 군주스의 컨디션스기래. 대다가 나도 직접 두고 준생가래. 겹 투서도 투서 말ပဲ. 근데 상담자 때문에 내지 되게 시험하라 때문에 되는 공원 참이지. 근데 돈에 되는 겹로 남다체. 내 가제 투도 돈이 있다고. 되는 장주 셈고. 모두 스카라지. 제 돈은 다 야고 싫어요. 그랬어. 내가 이제 돼서 좋았어.
In the future, it's really good if you can practice these steps as we did today. So first, you should start with recalling the qualities of the three jewels, of the objects of refuge, and recalling why it is important to go for refuge and why we do go for refuge and why they have the capacity to grant refuge and that they do have it. And then generating the motivation, the mindset of loving kindness and compassion. And with that, then you should train in taking the Mahayana refuge. Afterwards, as much as you can, to the best of your abilities for a moment, then you should contemplate on the view of emptiness and then meditate on Bodhicitta, the mind of awakening. That would be really great. And for today, we have come to the end of the session as the time is over. So please today, because it is Saka Dawa, Rinpoche would like to invite you to please do recite 1,000 Mani mantras with that intention, as we have said it now. Please do that. Gonda tanda tamadi che son kare neyam sel che tu ale mani gangla mani tongda chi che ani drame tsenga katsutumna. And because and in order to heal the pandemic, please do also repeat as many Tara mantras as you can, the name mantra of Tara. Yeah, you will take approximately 15 minutes for the manis, for the Chenrezi mantra, and then if you can do some Tara mantras that on top of that, that would be amazing. Karesa kamanishu? That won't take more than 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Geshe-la. I'll just do the dedication prayers. Let me share my screen with you. Chanchu Semjo Ma Ke Panam Ke Gyuchi Ke Wa Nyam Pa Me Pa Yang Gone Gondu Pe Wa Shor Toni Dawa Rinpoche Ma Ke Panam Ke Gyuchi Kewa nyam pa ya ngone gondu pewa shor. Gangri lawe kowe jin kam de. Pendan de wa malu jumene. Chenre zigwan tenzing gatsoi. Jape si te badu tengyur chi. Toni ningje zondo jope lam. Chenche selze ganchen ten dragon. Chana pe mo tenzing gatsola. Sewa te so shen nun shu. Du zu zhan jin zhang gen ge wei. Tenzing gyeon pe wei kun zu do po zi. Chor sun kul wei le men zhu zhu. Pa da so du je gen du zhab ten shuo. And also just a special thank you, Geshe-la, for helping us with these teachings over the past few months. And also, do you say Saka Dawa Tashidele? I don't know if that's how you say it in Tibetan, but thank you, Geshe-la. And we hope that you have a healthy and long life and continue to benefit as many sentient beings as possible, and all the obstacles of those be removed as quickly as possible. Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
And thank you, Julika, for all your help, without which we wouldn't understand anything. So.
Oh, well, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Yeah, this kind of bit of effort is needed, and effort is
Jenang.
the definition of effort is.
Night.